Good morning. Let's start with a question. If you could have any superpower that you wanted, what would it be? You know what mine would be? Flying. I always thought that it would be so cool to be able to fly to get to wherever I wanted to be and have that bird's eye view or any view, because you could land anywhere. So what would your superpower be? You think about it a second. Would you be the strongest person in the world? Would you be able to fly like me? Would you have the superpower to go back in time and to see some things that came before our lifetime? Maybe you would want to elasticize and stretch yourself. I don't know. So think about that. But today in our story, we're going to talk about a superpower. What do you think it's going to be? Well, Jesus, of course, can do anything he wants to do. And in our story today, he walks on the water. Not just on calm water, but he walks on the rough waves that are white capping and the wind is blowing. And for anybody else, it would just be impossible, right? Well, you'd think so, but let's see what happens. I'm going to read to you today from the book of Matthew, chapter 14, okay? This story of Jesus walking on the water is featured in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the four Gospels in the New Testament. But this particular telling of the story is the only one that includes something about Peter. Remember, Peter is one of Jesus' disciples. Remember, he was one of the fishermen that Jesus called to follow him, okay? All right, so I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to use your imagination today as I read you the story. I do have one image from my large, big story Bible book that I'll share with you, but for the most part, I want you to use your imagination, okay? Look at this book. Look at this picture. Do you see a motor on the boat behind? No, you don't. It's more like a ship, isn't it? And what's powering that ship? The sail, right? And what is happening in the water? There's a storm, okay? And just so you know, it's at night. This story happened at night. This true story, right? And this is Peter, and this is Jesus. And this is the boat behind them with all the rest of the disciples. There were 12 disciples. So Peter and then the other 11, yes. So this is just to get you started. This is not a motorboat. This is not your fishing boat that you would take out on Lake Pontchartrain with, two motors on it. This is just a wooden boat with a sail and probably some oars. And these guys had been rowing this boat or sailing this boat all night long in the dark across the Sea of Galilee. And then something amazing happened. Okay, use your imagination. I'm going to set the storybook down and pick up my Bible to read you from Matthew chapter 14. Jesus walks on the water from verse 22 down here to verse 33, okay? Now, Jesus had just fed the 5,000. Do you remember what he fed them? 2 fish and 5 loaves. And God blessed it. And all the people ate and were full and even had leftovers, right, that they picked up. So Jesus dismissed all the people. It was time to go home. And he told his disciples to take the boat and go ahead and go across the Sea of Galilee to the next town, okay? He was going to catch up with them later. How? There's no taxis or Ubers. He didn't have a motorboat. Okay, that's what makes this story really awesome. Ready? Immediately, he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray, okay? Remember some of these things, I'm going to ask you questions after the story. So he went up to pray. He was worn out. He needed time to be alone. It took a lot of energy to teach all those people all day long. And he just needed time to revive his spirit and touch base with God, our Father in heaven, and just rejuvenate his soul, you know? So he went up on the mountain by himself to have quiet time to pray with God. When the evening came, he was there alone. But the boat, by this time, was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. So they were having to row or sail against the wind, which is tough to do if you've ever tried to do that. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, okay? He came to the disciples in the boat, probably halfway across the sea, I don't know, pretty far. And he was walking on the sea. It doesn't, back up. Walking on the sea? Miss Patrick, surely you're misreading that. It says he was swimming or floating, or he was in his own boat. No, it says walking. It says walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. They were afraid. And they said, "It's a ghost." They had never seen someone walk on the water at night in the middle of the worst wind and thunderstorm ever. So they cried out in fear because they were afraid. But immediately Jesus spoke to them saying, "Take heart, it is I. Don't be afraid." And Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Oh, he needed to know that that was Jesus and not some ghost. So let's see what happens. So Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat. Remember, the waves are rocking the boat, the wind is blowing tremendously, and Peter walked on the water and came to Jesus. Now, isn't that something? Okay. He was looking at Jesus, walking on these busy, white-capped, rough waves, but walking on top and not wavering, not falling over. And he was focused on Jesus. But then he started looking around. He stopped looking at Jesus. He took his eyes off of Jesus and he started looking at what was going on around him in the water. And when he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Well, Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Why did you not think that I could keep you above the water? Why did you worry about the wind? I just showed you that you could walk on the water, and you took your eyes and your focus off of me, and you fell into the water." Well, when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. That means the wind stopped. The storm calmed down. And those in the boat worshiped Jesus, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God. You are who you say you are. You have the power and authority that you say you do because of what you've just done. You've walked on the water. You shared your superpower with Peter, and when Peter was looking at you, he was walking on the water. And even when Peter fell off and doubted, Jesus pulled him right back up and rescued him and saved him. And he was standing on the water again. And then they walked back to the boat, I imagine. So I think that is so amazing. And it's funny to think about Jesus having a superpower and wanting to share that superpower with us. But he does. He does. Now, let's go over some questions to see what you remember about the story, okay? Jesus sent the disciples in the boat across the Sea of Galilee to the next city. Now, what did Jesus do all by himself before he went to them on the water? Do you remember? Remember, he was tired and worn out. Yes, he went to pray and spend alone time with God. Okay, very good. Well, then he went out to the sea and walked on the sea on top of the water to get to the boat where the disciples were. That's amazing. That's another miracle. Now, how did the disciples react when they saw this person coming to them on top of the water in the middle of this storm with all these raging wind and crashing waves, and the boat is rocking? What did they think he was? Do you remember? If you said a ghost, you're correct. They thought they saw they having some kind of weird vision, huh? So they thought it was a ghost, but it was actually Jesus. And Jesus could tell they were afraid. So he said, don't be afraid. Okay, it's me, it's Jesus. We know each other. Now, what did Peter say? Peter said to Jesus, if it is really you, then let me walk on the water to you. And so he did, right? Now, did Peter walk on the water and everything was fine after that? Not exactly. What happened? Peter did what? He started looking around at the wind and the waves and the storm, and he got all worried and frantic, and he took his eyes off of Jesus and he focused on the problem or the fear, and whoosh, he fell into the water. I don't know if Peter could swim, but even if you can swim and you're in that kind of big raging storm, you're still gonna struggle to stay on top of the water, right? To keep your head out. So he called out to Jesus and said, oh, save me, rescue me, rescue me. So Jesus, of course, did and pulled him up out of the water. And he said, Peter, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Why did you look around at the storm and start worrying about whether you would stay on top of the water? I was keeping you on top of the water as long as you were focused on me. But when you took your eyes off of me, you fell. And you shouldn't have. Why did you do that? You focused on the problem instead of on me. So then I had to rescue you. And they went back to the boat. Okay? So Peter should have kept his eyes on Jesus the whole time, right? Yeah. Now, if you're one of the 11 disciples sitting back in the boat, what would you be thinking? I know I'd be thinking, whoa, well, I want to do that, but I don't know. I might be a little nervous and I might fall in like Peter did, but I think I want to try, you know? So that must have been interesting to be one of those other disciples and see what was going on. I have my notes. Okay. So I guess you could say that Jesus shared his superpower of walking on the water with Peter as long as Peter was focused on him. Okay? As long as Peter focused his eyes, his mind, and his heart on Jesus, he could stay on top of the water. He had Jesus' strength and power to be able to do what he needed to do. So, do you want to fall or sink in your life? No, that's not any fun, is it? The storms are the tough times in our life, okay? Like when we're scared, when we're afraid, when we're nervous, frustrated, or angry. Instead of looking at these things, looking at these storms, like Peter did, we should look at Jesus. We should ask him to share his superpowers with us. Okay, Miss Patrick, what are you talking about? Well, you just pray to him and say, Dear Jesus, I'm scared, I'm afraid, and I need you to comfort me. Give me your strength and comfort. Or, Dear Jesus, I am not being patient. I'm grumpy because I'm at home all the time and we can't go anywhere. I need you to help me be calm. Help me be patient and help me be gentle with my words and my actions. And he will give you. It's that ask and receive, like Father Fred said the other day in chapel. If you ask for Jesus' superpowers, he will help you and give them to you. Now, the Bible doesn't call them superpowers, okay? But I think they really are, you know? I mean, because only God can do these things, okay? So he will always want us to trust in him so that he can help us because he loves us, right? He loved Peter. He wasn't going to let Peter drown, okay? He wasn't going to let Peter sink to the bottom of the ocean. He loved Peter. He pulled him up and he rescued him. He wants to do that with us too. Okay, when we're having a problem or we need him, he's right there. All we have to do is pray and ask him, hey, help me out, please. Okay? So if we're not looking at Jesus for help, then we're looking at our problem instead. Okay, I'm going to have to move this because there's something out the window that is a bad reflection and it keeps getting in my eye, so I got to turn. Okay? All right. So let me start that again. If we're not looking at Jesus, if we're not focused on Jesus, then we're focused on our problem, okay? And we need help solving our problems or getting through a hard time, okay? Peter took his eyes off of Jesus and he looked at the storm around him and he fell in the water. And he had a new problem. He doubted that Jesus could keep him above water. So what should Peter have done? Peter should have continued to look at Jesus the whole time. So imagine if you were Peter. I mean, if this guy, Jesus, is sharing his superpower with you, are you going to have fun walking on the water? Or are you going to start worrying about the wind and the waves and the storm around you? I hope you would all have fun trusting Jesus, looking at him the whole time and walking on the water and just enjoying sharing that amazing experience with Jesus because of Jesus, okay? That's obedience. That's obeying him, listening to him, and doing what he wants us to do. And it's all in the Bible, what he wants us to do, how he wants us to behave and treat others. We've talked about this, how to be kind and loving. When we're kind and loving, patient and gentle, and all of those wonderful things, that's showing God we love him and loving others. That shows God we love others. Now, I do have some activities that I would like to do with you, but I'm going to make a second video and show you those activities in that video so that it's not so long. This one is already too long. Okay, have a great day and hop over to the second video. Bye.